Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, welcome back, everyone. This is our next installment of Pagan 101. Today, I'm not going to lie, is my favorite class. I think I guys talked about that last week a little bit. We're going to kind of get into some of my favorite topics that blend really well together. First, we're going to take a look at magical theory and practice, basically what magic is, how magic can survive in this modern day, which is always a very interesting discussion to me. We're going to look at some specific situations of how everyone practices magic. It's just most folks don't know that they do it. And then we're going to get a little bit deeper into altars and altar setups and things like that. Yeah. So, without further ado, I want to start by talking about, we do have here in the classroom, we have wine on the table and some non-alcoholic versions as well. So folks, if you'd like to pour yourself a libation out there as well, kind of in honor in Zoom land, please feel free. This ties in when we talk about altars and things like that. We're going to talk a little bit about elixirs and chalices and things of that nature. So that might be a little bit fun.
Yeah, could you pass the sparkling grape juice? The red wine? Thank you.
Wow.
I have a warm beverage and a cold beverage. This is great. What's your name? Terry. Terry, I'm Claire. I'll try.
Shoot across the table.
Honey, just finish pushing that bottle, will you?
Push it out.
This would be a miracle if they don't get through with that.
You want some grape juice anymore?
Okay. Ooh, this one?
I'll have the sparkling grape.
Yeah.
Pass that. Put her down. Yeah.
All right, and then if you're looking at our little outline, we're going to start with magical theory today.
Can you explain the parentheses K?
Sure can. That's part of what we're going to talk about.
Oh, good. I've always wondered that.
Yeah. So, and the guy pictured there on the thumbnail is Eliphas Levi. He's a prominent magical figure in a lot of different respects. He's the inspiration for modern tarot decks. He was basically sort of a medieval occultist to the stars, if you will. Wrote a lot. A lot of people have seen, like, actually it's pictured here. It's the thumbnail for the Satan issue. It's the picture of Baphomet, which is the hermaphroditic horned god deity with the light on its head. He was actually the artist of that. So he's kind of been very beneficial. I thought he was a nice little thumbnail guy for this. And then I'll just go ahead and answer that specific question straight out. So magic versus magic, right? When referring to magic in the metaphysical sense, it's spelled magic, made with a K. In order to differentiate it from sleight of hand or stage magic. This is often credited to Aleister Crowley and or the Golden Dawn. So, there's a lot of big words and things in there. So, the word metaphysical just means spiritual, or it means other than physical, or specifically physically something that cannot be explained.
Okay, say that again.
So it means something like spiritual,
okay,
or specifically above physical, or physical thing that cannot be explained. And then Aleister Crowley was kind of a prominent practitioner back in the day. He was an Englishman who was very influential in a lot of magical circles. The first magical order that he ever joined was the Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a magical group that had some folks of notoriety in it. Our modern tarot deck comes from these folks as well, from Rider Waite Smith, writer who was a member with Crowley. The poet Yeats, the romantic poet, he was a member. So it was just kind of I explain it sort of like the Masons, or like the Rosicrucians, or basically a magical order that was secretive in nature. And then going down here, we get to the definition of magic. Now, one of my favorite things is you think that the definition of magic would be one of the most complex things that we could cover. But really, there's not much argument about what magic actually is. So these three people I have up on the screen. On the left, we have Gerald Gardner. Gerald Gardner was, some would say, the inventor, others would say the discoverer of modern Wicca in England. The Crowley, who I just talked about, is in the middle, and then on the right-hand side, as I'm looking at it, you have Anton LaVey, who was the founder of the Church of Satan. Why do I have all these three people on the same line? They all have the exact same definition of what magic is. So across the board, it seems to be pretty universal on at least what magic is supposed to accomplish. And that is change in accordance with one's will can you go back a minute, Jeanette? Sorry. Yeah.
So those three guys, again, which ones or which ones?
So Gerald Gardner, he is the kind of godfather of modern Wicca.
Okay.
The guy in the middle, Aleister Crowley, was a magical practitioner all throughout his life. And he was a part of the Order of the Golden Dawn, and later went on to invent the religion known as Thelema, Thelema. And then the guy on
I always pronounced it wrong.
Yeah, and then the guy on the right is Anton LaVey, who was the founder of the Church of Satan, which was started in 1966 here in California.
I almost expect him to go into a supervillain spiel.
They all kind of look like that, don't
Hey
they?
Jim, they look like a really bad.
How do you know that's not coming up?
They don't look real friendly.
No, they don't.
In fact, the Satan guy is probably the most, well,
Menacing.
Gerald Gardner looks like a mad scientist.
I know.
He loves it.
Yeah.
I feel like they're all about.
Yeah, that guy looks like he's crazy.
Great
That one's
detail
really-
and detriment to their own form.
Yeah. All right, we can go down now, Janae. Okay, so now we're going to get into magical theory. It is my opinion, and I would say that once you guys see this, it's very clear that magic and science are very closely related and are probably, in fact, the same thing. Okay? If you think about this, who's seen the movie Hocus Pocus, the original? Okay. You remember the part where the Sanderson sisters are about to get the kids, and they're in the museum, and then all of a sudden the guy pulls out a cigarette lighter and he goes, "Behold, fire!"
Mm-hmm.
And then turns the sprinkler on with it. Okay. All of those things were magic to the witches because they came from a bygone time. Okay. We literally live in a world with like self-driving cars and all of these things. Just in my lifetime, I was born in 1990. I've seen things progress so much. Okay. So what I want you guys to keep in perspective is that magic and science do not have to be on different sides of the fence. All right. Generally, magic is used to explain science that will come. Now, other side of this is, Lee, that's a lot of conspiracy theory folks say that as well. That's true. Okay. Not everything comes to fruition, but everything that is now science was once magic. And I say that across the board. Okay. Also, kind of going back to other religions, the big three, right? Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, right? They will tell you that it's bad to practice magic, right? All of them will say that only their priesthood is allowed to practice magic. Okay. Now that brings me back to the second point of the day that I want to make. Other religions do not make magic disappear. They only control who gets to do magic. Okay? And I'm going to give some examples. So our first picture here is a Catholic priest. The Catholic priest is performing Eucharist. Okay? Eucharist is when the wine and the bread are converted into Christ's blood and body. Up till very, very recently, the Catholic Church stated that if you were to do a DNA test on that blood and wine after it has been transformed, it would be the literal body and blood of Christ. Anybody know that? I think they made a ruling that might not be true pretty recently.
Yeah,
but
they got it at Walmart.
but that is the belief. Okay. And I'm not trying to religion shame anyone, by the way. I'm just trying to prove the point that every religion practices magic. All right. Priesthoods are restrictive in the fact that they are the people who are allowed to practice magic, and then they deliver the results to the people. Okay. Next picture we have up here is the Muslim Mecca, or the Kaaba. This is a location where supposedly Adam and Ishmael built the first altars to Allah, and is where the Prophet Muhammad received his instructions. Okay. This brings me to magical places. All right. Magical places exist. Okay. People are scared of cemeteries for a reason. Okay. People treat religious institutions and religious grounds with awe. Okay. Going back to Hocus Pocus. The witches were not allowed to go into the cemetery because it was hollow ground. Okay. What makes something hollow ground? Anybody have an answer to that?
Blessed by a priest.
Exactly. So the guy from the first picture made hollow ground, right? That's a subject of his power, is he can make a place special. All right. Third, we have Odin's wisdom. Okay. Picture of Odin here from the Marvel movies.
Very accurate.
This is the heathen and also true concept of that magic stems from Odin, who gave his eye for wisdom. Likewise, heathens and heathen magicians get their power through the gods. Okay. Now, sticking with our concept, Odin had to sacrifice his eye to the gods in order to bless his practitioners with magical powers, or his priests to have magical powers. Okay. Can we go down, Jeanette? All right, magic from energy. All right. This is the magical theory that it states all matter is a form of energy, and magicians learn to affect, shape, and use that power through magical practice. Examples of this: chakras. Anybody familiar with the chakra system?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is an Eastern system associated with spiritualism and medicine. It's the idea that each point of the spine has specific properties and can be energetically manipulated. Another Western version of this is hypnotism. So in the middle picture, we have Anton Mesmer's animal magnetism. That's what he originally called hypnotism. And this was the idea that there was a magical fluid in the body that could be controlled by the words or magnetized to certain points of the body in order to have magical effect. Basically, it's the Western version of energy work, if anyone ever was wondering.
And isn't his efforts part of what kicked off the spiritualist movement?
They are too. He was one of them, certainly. Right. And then the biggest thing we see here today is how many people have seen those little magnets that you put on your body to make you feel better.
Right here.
Yep. Okay. So this was the guy who first thought of that.
And they do.
Yeah. And then the question of why it works is very interesting. It's clear that it does work, but why is interesting. And then on the right-hand side, we have a picture of a wand. Crystals and wands are seen here, and they are used to conduct energy and power in directions. Okay. All three of these concepts believe that magic comes from energy that can be molded and manifested to your desire.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
What about acupuncture?
That's a good question. I would say that is energy work as well. I'm not an expert on acupuncture, but I believe that the pins are used to shut off the chakra system and to engage the chakra system in certain orders in order to make things work.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yep.
Next one, we have magic from creation. Okay. This states that magic is created from the magician's own life force and will. And then it's set into the world by the magician through the use of magical practice. We talked about this a little bit last time because the question came up. But on the left-hand side, I have a picture of Slender Man. Okay. A little bit dated at this point. But Slender Man was basically an internet creation that people believed was real, so much to the fact that certain people actually committed murders in its name. This was the idea that someone made up, and then they put it on the internet. Other people started to believe it, and then it had effects. Okay.
Gee, I never heard of that.
You never heard of that?
Nightmares.
Yeah. It was when
It
was
wasn't that long ago, a few
Not
years
that
ago.
long
That
ago.
was
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah, before the pandemic. Was
Yeah.
it mid?
It was
Yeah.
really popular in middle schoolers and high schoolers.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
probably
Those
why.
two that went and convinced a young girl to go out into the woods with them, and then they killed her too.
Oh, okay.
She lived.
She did live, yeah.
They tried.
They
They
tried.
didn't succeed, but they tried.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a modern idea of a magical idea gaining power and then going into society. In the middle here, we have more of a classical version. This is a golem. So in Hebrew magic, pre-Christian Hebrew magic mostly, they would build small objects and then believe that they could bring them to life. And they would use them to protect their homes, to do their bidding, certain things of that nature. And then this is also seen in the Greek myth of Pygmalion. Pygmalion, if you don't know the story, was a sculptor who, through his belief in his power and his will and communication with the gods, brought that statue to life.
Sort of like a modern day, well, then switched it over to like Pinocchio or.
That's another very good example.
Or Chucky.
Or Chucky.
yeah.
Halloween Town 2.
Annabelle. Oh yeah,
Have you seen
Annabelle.
that?
All of
I have,
those
yes.
things.
And then we talked about this last time too, but I have Santa Claus up here. Okay. And it's the concept of an egregore. All right. Basically, that is something that's made, a magical idea that's created, and then a lot of people give energy to it and then make it a very, very big thing. Slender Man's the same thing, but a smaller and more evil version. All right. And then the next one we
I
have
wonder
is
how I missed that one.
we have Magic from Psychodrama.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So this is the idea that magic is a play that we do for ourselves, but that play has effects that then change us and can change our qualities. Okay. The satanic
God.
magic, the Anton LaVey's magical system is completely based in this. All right. And then I also in the middle have a picture of Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is a prominent method actor. I'd like to use
Extreme method actor.
Yeah.
That's what makes him so
He
good.
goes to extremes.
Yeah.
Don't they all the method actors? I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but that's the
That's the
idea. He's completely changing himself into this person in order to become something else and to believe in something else. I don't know. This is really, really dated, but is anybody familiar with Andy Kaufman and Jim Carrey's rendition of him in Man Over the Moon?
Mhm.
Okay. So a story that people don't know is that Jim Carrey was so lifelike or so much associated with Andy Kaufman that his children believed that it was him reincarnated. And they actually talked to him as if he was channeling their father. So yeah, so that's just so you know, this is my kind of personal methodology of magic. And I just say that because I think it's important to know where the speaker's coming from. But that's not to say that any of these other ones are any less valid, because they all are very valid. Then on the right-hand side,
Can you push over the rosé? Sure.
We should have brought the lazy Susan.
and then on the right-hand side, we have Carl Gustav Jung, along with
you get two cups.
along with Sigmund Freud. He was kind of the father of modern psychology, and he is basically the founder is the discoverer of the subconscious mind. Both he and Freud believed in the subconscious mind, but Jung actually studied it and figured out
Smells good.
how important it really is. And then I have a little blurb there that in his later years, he developed this theory or this practice really, where he would communicate with his own subconscious in trance and then talk back and forth with the beings that he created there or that he discovered
That's
there.
weird.
So he really was talking to the voices in his head.
Yeah.
And then
Or
next,
his guides.
or his guides.
Yeah.
And I will say again, I'm kind of a Jung fanatic a little bit. So all of Western magical stuff is built off of Jung. It stole.
Oh,
They
okay.
the term shadow work comes from Jung.
Yeah.
The terms archetype comes from Jung. Everybody bastardizes him nowadays. My least favorite one is he just talked about the anima and the animus, which is the idea that each one of us have the opposite gender inside of us at all times. And now he's bastardized by the trans community.
Oh,
So like that. So I just say, like, really, if you want to get into magic and you're kind of like, I don't really believe in any of this mumbo jumbo, look at Jung, because he's literally the father of most of the psychology around you. If you go to a psychologist or a therapist, they have read Jung. Okay, I guarantee it. Next, we have the magical form of celestial alignment. Magic from celestial alignment or sacred geometry. This theory states that magic is a naturally occurring force that is stronger or more accessible at certain times depending on planetary alignments. Most of the time, the shapes created by those alignments also hold power in smaller forms. So we have on the left here, this is the nautilus shell ratio. This is a mathematical ratio found in shells. But it occurs everywhere in nature, and most people believe that this is the foundation of modern geometry. There's the idea of how did humans know how to make a straight line? Because straight lines do not occur in nature, but they do occur if you work with this formula. Also, musical notes follow this exact same pattern. Basically, everything can be reduced to the nautilus shell ratio if you look hard enough.
And she
True.
was inspired by it a lot.
Yeah. What's the house? Sydney talked about it. The house the lady built that's really crazy. Winchester. A lot of the stuff they are finding is a perversion of the nautilus shell sequence that she had built. Yeah. Moving on to monolithic structures. Many sacred sites were built based on the movements of celestial bodies, including Stonehenge. Also,
the pyramids in
and the pyramids.
Mexico,
Yep.
in Egypt, and all over the world.
Yep, were built for celestial alignment. And then, of course, we have like lunar and solar events, eclipses, and all of those things. Following moon cycles, which we talked about last time. This is the idea that planetary energy and the shapes that they create dictate things. We all
Imagine
probably
how scary that was for people before there were lights and all of those things when those lunar solar events happened, you know, how scary that would be.
It would, no idea what's going on. So this is the idea of magic from that point of view. Next, we have the idea of magic from beyond the veil.
Creepy doll.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is a theory that states that magic occurs only in other dimensions, often associated with death or the afterlife, and that the magician harnesses that power by receiving it from the spirits who have died. On the left there, I have a picture of a columbarium. That's a bunch of cremated remains, I believe. And that's the practice of necromancy, ranging from ancient ideas of receiving or reviving actual corpses and talking to them, all the way to kind of our modern version of, tarot cards and all of that type of stuff, or anything divination tool connected to the spirit world. In the middle, we have a picture of a ghost hunting show, and this is the idea of wayward spirits. Ghost hunting is a popular pastime even for non-magical folks. Spirit boxes and cameras are modern forms of communicating with the dead. If you are into this stuff at all, there's like a million little devices you can get that supposedly can connect
I'm
you with
gonna
the spirit
bring a
world.
doll next week that I bought over the internet, but I want you to tell me if it's too creepy.
Okay.
Okay?
I
To
grew up
give
with
to
glass dolls.
my
It's
granddaughter,
not gonna bother me.
my great-granddaughter. I mean, it looked really neat online, but then when I got it, I thought, is this a little bit too much? Okay.
That's something from
Give me
Salem
some
thrift
advice.
store last month, and I think there's something weird attached to it.
And that's a great segue into trapping spirits. In many parts of Europe, for example, when a child dies, it was common to give the family a doll that was made to look exactly like the child. Sometimes, or most often, made with the child's actual hair.
Oh, that'd be
That's just not
terrible.
Yeah,
Oh.
What other hair are they supposed to use?
That's really disturbing though.
But maybe, you know, they didn't have short
Gotta do
haircuts, so
something
it
with
wouldn't mean like they took all the hair, they just cut some off.
Yeah.
Well, in Victorian time, they used to take hair for the
Right.
deceased and they do artwork with it,
Yeah.
and then you frame it
Right.
and hang it up in your house.
I know.
They would keep special dishes beside their hairbrushes to collect their
Oh my
hair from the
gosh.
brush. I actually just saw that in one of these groups, and then someone bought one from an antique store, and they're like, "What is this?"
A bowl of hair?
No.
There's no
The bowl.
hair.
Oh, the
but it was
actual
the
bowl.
bowl
But
that
you
you
have a
actually.
bowl. You can keep your hair.
Because they were like, "What is this
I throw
for?"
mine in the trash.
Yeah, you know, people say that your spirit is connected to your hair,
Oh my
and
gosh.
so you should treat your hair with respect when you're disposing of it. So throw it in the trash is kind of like throwing your soul away.
Maybe that's why I have such bad luck.
I put mine in the garden to keep the bunnies away
Good
from my
idea.
To
If you're
keep the bunnies
interested-
away?
from eating my coneflowers.
Well,
Yeah.
that would be a good idea.
It works.
For sure.
If you want to take a small trip, there's actually one of these dolls in Marshalltown, Iowa. At Mitchell Family Funeral Home, they have a museum. And I have a picture of it somewhere, but yeah, there's one made in Germany, but that's a cool little place. But yeah, basically back to the topic, this is the idea that you can trap a spirit somehow, right? Dolls are kind of the modern manifestation that we all think about
Sure.
because of the movies and things like that. But this was done in a lot of different ways. Spirit boxes, like not the radio things, but original spirit boxes, were the idea that you could catch souls in them and keep them and bury them, or in order to get rid of them. There's the idea of mirrors, all of the lore around mirrors, the idea that you can catch spirits and reflections. There's the whole idea of spirit photography, kind of the same concept, more modernized. So yeah, that's
I have a question for
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Okay, this may not have anything to do with what you're saying, but when you talk about dolls, I just want to bring this up. I was brought up in a family, and my grandmother had this doll in her attic, and I found it. And I can't remember if she really told me about the background. But on one end, there was a white doll,
Mhm.
and then you dump her upside down, and there was a black one.
Those were a common toy. Yeah.
But I don't know where that came from, especially with all of the problems with race relations and everything, how that all came about, that they had dolls like that.
It was kind of
Was it like the servant and the,
probably
Owner?
it was from that time era, but yeah, it was. But it was basically kind of like you can flip it over, so it's two
yeah,
dolls in
the
one.
dresses
Yeah.
were different,
Uh-huh.
and the two bodies, the like they were connected at the waist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's like the start to a great horror movie, I don't know what it is.
No, but it was real. I mean, and my grandma said that lots of kids on the farms and everything had them.
$2 in one, it's probably
Yeah.
cheaper.
Don't we have one of those dolls at home?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure out, where those actually came from, especially up here, where we don't have that much, where we had slaves and that stuff, more, that was in the South.
Hmm. Yeah,
But what the history was to that.
it's a good question.
They represent a maid, slave, or servant, and
Yeah,
the
I
white
thought
dog
so.
could represent the master's child or the mistress of the house. This is what Google says.
And that was strange for Midwest, people that
Mhm.
were born and raised here in Iowa to have that, I would think.
It serves in Missouri, didn't they?
Maybe.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah, but we were part of like the pathway for the slaves escaping.
Hmm.
The Underground Railroad.
Uh-huh.
Jordan House.
Mhm.
All right, guys. So with what we've been talking about so far, before we move on to magical methods, I want you to remember your magical item that you brought last week. New person, sorry, I know that you weren't here last week, but so try to, what we talked about today, try to, in your own mind, attach one of these to it. Why do you think that your piece that you brought was magical? Was it because of energy? Was it because of communication? Because it was connected with an ancestor from beyond the veil? Was it what other ones from the gods? Did some priest or something bless it for you? Was it from nature? Was it energy related? It's just kind of a fun little thing to do to kind of discover why your thing is magical if you didn't know already.
Nature.
Yeah, nature, yours was a garden and stuff. Yeah. All right, then guys, these are just some kind of a primer to get us into our next section. But these are ideas of like ways that people can practice magic, sort of the things that are used. So you have candle magic. This is the idea of using different colored candles, possibly dressed with distinctive oils and herbs for magical practice. Example I have is a doom candle, which is for
A doom candle?
yeah, it stands for death into my enemy. It's like a curse or something like that. Herbs, burning or ingesting herbs for magical or medicinal purposes. Example I have here is a mugwort dream pillow. A lot of folks will use mugwort in a sock or something like that when they want to have vivid dreams, and they'll put it behind their neck.
What if you don't dream?
That's supposed to help with that. So yeah, or help you remember your dreams. Sigil magic. This is the idea of creating or otherwise using a specific symbol for magical purposes. I gave the example here of the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is kind of a classical magic grimoire. You've probably seen you ever seen like Supernatural or any like spooky TV show? All of the symbols of the demons pretty much all come from there. I would say that the cross is an example of this as well. Most people believe, or most Christian folk would believe that the symbol of the cross invokes some power. You know, it protects you from vampires. It does all of these things. As a mortician, I still give away crucifixes to the families that have been blessed by the priests, that sort of thing. Visualization tools are not required for magical work, guys. I always want to put that out there, and that's why I always use cheap glasses for things. You know, like when you get into magical practice, there's this idea, and you start going to shops. You're like, oh, I need that $300 chalice. No, you don't. You need a Dixie cup. You'll be fine. Mason jar do the same thing.
I love it.
But you really don't even need anything at all. If you can meditate and get yourself into a meditative practice where you can do a complete ritual in your head, it's just as effective. Divination, using methods to commune with source in a magical way. My example here is a witch's mirror, witch's bowl, crystal ball, that sort of thing. Some folks sacrifice, so this is dedicating anything to the gods that could have been used by the practitioner in a non-magical way. Example is food.
Okay. I have a question about that. Obviously, you can't leave copious amounts of food out on your altar unless you want little buggies for too long. So what do you do with it?
Generally, folks will put it outside.
Okay.
So yeah.
They have an outside altar.
Yeah, well, or they'll have it in their house and then they'll take it outside. Some folks burn it, so
Okay.
burnt offerings. There's the idea of burn and bury. So you burn the thing and then you bury the ashes.
There's also the option of just eating it.
Okay.
That's true. Or eating a portion of it.
I
Yeah.
have done that. I have literally gone to Sonic when they were having their 50-cent corn dog sale, bought corn dogs, used it as my offering, and then ate them.
Yeah. Talisman magic.
Yeah.
A lot of you guys had things that were on you last week, rings, necklaces, that type of stuff. Talisman is a creation and dedication of an inside of a sacred space of basically anything, right? A lot of times they can be worn, and this goes back to glamour magic, the idea that that thing has a specific job to do for you, right? So if it's from your ancestor, when you focus on it, think about it, things of that nature, you're reminded of them. There's like those mood rings, worry rings that are designed to be touched when you're anxious. Again, crucifixes would do the same thing. I'm reminded of the ancient Egypts. They always used to wear the scarab on their chest, and the idea was that the weight of the scarab would calm your heart. And there's just a million different ways this applies.
Worry beads or rosaries.
Worry beads, rosaries, the worry stones that you carry in your pocket.
Worry dolls.
Lucky rock. Yeah.
Voodoo dolls.
Yeah.
Voodoo doll.
This also goes to like your
Don't carry those in your pocket.
your magical items for your altar. So like if you dedicate a certain blade, if you dedicate a chalice or a candle, that would also technically be a talisman. For next wave effigy, this is creating and utilizing of a physical visage of a targeted person or thing in magic. And my example is a poppet. So that's what a voodoo doll is in traditional terms.
I thought you meant one of the fidget toys.
Oh.
I'm like, what?
So this is a thing that will be made to look like your target, right? So a lot of people use vegetable matter, like carved potatoes. That's kind of the old witchcrafty way. Scarecrows.
Oh, yeah, scarecrow.
Things that can be burned. Yeah. We have sex magic here. Oh, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, I'm from Northeast Iowa, so I'm from up by Effigy Mounds, and
Yeah.
is that a similar concept
You have to
for
explain
Native
that a little bit.
Americans? Oh, do you know what an effigy?
Oh, yep. Yeah.
They're shaped in like animals and stuff.
Yeah. And they don't have to be just for bad purposes. So like you could make a shape of an animal to venerate
Right.
that animal.
Yes,
right?
absolutely, but
Yeah.
I think they also use them for burial mounds.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sure do. Let's
Which
see.
isn't bad necessarily.
No.
No,
And then
they
sex.
love their animal.
Sex is often used for magical purposes. Example here is tantra. So it's kind of more of an Eastern practice, but so it gets in there as well. And many, many more. There's lots and lots of different ways to practice magic. Things I didn't notice, like knot magic, tying knots is a big thing. And then I want to speak briefly here too. There is sort of a division between witchcraft, which kind of comes up from the rural side of things, which is in this group what you're going to find more of. And then that also kind of clashes with occult practice. That comes from like I call them hoity-toity groups, right? So that's like your Masons, your Golden Dawn members. It's kind of the more collegiate form of magic, okay? We're going to talk here in a little bit too about practical magic versus ritual magic. Practical magic often comes from more witchcrafty terms, but and then ritual magic often comes from more of the ceremonial groups. So, yeah, and here it is. So we'll talk about the difference between those two things. Okay, ceremonial magic. Examples of that in the pagan sense would be like celebrating the wheel of the year. So these are things where we gather, where we have a public festivity or semi-public festivity. Also hand fastings, which are like pagan weddings, pagan funerals, wickenings, dedications, anything where a new child is celebrated. Croning and saging, which is passing on into elder years. Sun moon or sun tent or moon tent, which is celebrating for biological females the idea of getting their first period, or for men getting their first facial hair. And again, these are often, they all have a public element to them. So examples would be our Samhain rituals, bar mitzvahs, yeah, if we're going outside of, yeah. So, and then, yeah. Practical magic, on the other hand. So this is the idea of using magic in a more private sense, often to gain something. Okay, so in examples here, to gain money, to gain love, to satisfy lust, to heal something, to bind someone, to destroy someone. And then this is often, again, private, solitary, focuses on spell work or energy work.
So ceremonial is more of a celebration of something, and practical magic has more of a goal at the end.
I say that's a very good way to put that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
What did you say was the goal?
Has a goal.
It has a goal.
No matter what the goal is, there's just a goal.
And there's a goal at the end.
So it's like when a solitary practitioner does like a private ritual for themselves because they want to bring more abundance into their life.
Okay.
Or money is the most common thing. Everybody needs it. We all want more of it. So that's a very common spell that a lot of people do, is to bring more money into their life, which is
Gotta go find
one of
those.
the things on the screen.
And then we're going to kind of compare and contrast some things here. So on the left, I have hand fasting. This is obviously a ritualistic type of thing. Again, it's a pagan wedding which is symbolized by this cord being wrapped around the hands. And then on the other side, for practical magic, we have what Janae was just talking about, which is money and spell work. And there's a picture of an altar there dedicated to that. Next, on the ritualistic side, we have funerals. Pagan funerals often incorporate green burial. There are few brick and mortar pagan churches that exist, so funerals are often held within funeral homes or in public or rented spaces. After cremations occur, green embalming and burial is also an option that pagans tend to choose. And again, this isn't for everyone, it's just kind of the trend.
What is green embalming?
So the embalming process is done with formaldehyde and glutaraldehyde traditionally.
Just the lack of those chemicals.
Yeah, so this is done more with, I've actually been researching it lately, but basically it's more essential oils and sheep fat, actually, lanolin.
Less chemical, more natural.
Yeah, that type of thing.
It's dehydrating and it's more of a plumping, temporary plumping procedure rather than a.
Well, I mean, technically all those natural items are chemicals as well.
Well,
Just
yeah.
Yeah,
There's also a place in Washington State that that turns you into mulch.
Yep.
You can decompose into mulch and then they.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yep.
mulch and a liquid fertilizer as well.
Do you get to take your loved one home and plant them?
Yep.
Oh, that's nifty.
Yep, you can either take a small
Sprinkle
bag
them.
or take all like 300 pounds.
Oh, that's-
Or if you don't want to take them, or if you only want to take a small bag, they have a special area dedicated to spreading the mulch.
yeah, that's kind of a new development. Not legal everywhere. Something that's a little bit more legal in more places is water cremation or aquamation, which is instead of being burned, you're dissolved.
Mhm.
Here at the church, we have out there land
Wow.
in our garden area that
For sprinkling.
people's ashes or whatever.
Wait, so
Like a
it's
mingling garden.
dissolved?
Yeah, it's basically using acids and bases. So
Ow!
There's also burial
You're
at
not gonna
sea.
feel
burial at
Just
sea.
like cremation, you don't feel it.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's just.
burial at sea is another option for non-landlocked places. Yeah,
Brick and mortar churches.
the idea of having like a physically standing
Yeah,
church.
but
Yeah.
where are those? I mean, are there any
Not an island.
in the United States?
Wisconsin.
Really?
There's not.
Minnesota has
The-
one.
Arizona, I
What's her
believe.
name? Selena Fox.
Selena Fox.
She has the
yeah.
Circle Sanctuary. It's like southern Wisconsin. It's really not that far from here. And she's got a very large online presence. She's been around since like 70s.
And what does she do?
She's a Wiccan priestess, I believe. She does ceremonies online and in person. They do like campouts, and she has like a whole big like reserve.
Retreat.
Mhm.
And she has a green cemetery.
She does. She does.
Oh, that's great.
Uh,
What was that?
Circle Sanctuary.
Thank you.
Sunset Memorial Garden used to have a green cemetery, but nobody here in Iowa wanted to deal with it, and so we closed it.
So yeah, it's kind of a deep dive on funerals, which would be a ritualistic side of thing.
She said it was in Wisconsin.
And then comparing and contrasting that with gaining love. So that would be a private thing that you would do for a practical thing. I have a picture here of the flower, the old she loves me, she loves me not thing. That is a witchcraft ritual. That's how it started. So next we have for ceremonial, we have dedications. This could be a wickening of a new child, initiation into a group or a coven by elder members. It could be self-initiation, which would actually probably be more on the practical side, but it could technically be either way. And yeah, so I have a picture up there of a Masonic initiation. And then on the other side for practical, to satisfy lust, this ranges from glamour magic, which is the idea of making yourself more presentable to the desired sex or a specific person, and then all the way to spell work
Glamour
designed to
magic.
get or to get a sexual partner. Here for on the ritualistic side, we have the croning or the saging. And this is the recognition given to a woman that's reached menopause generally, and has become an elder in the community. Likewise, saging is the male version, and it's symbolized by technically the return of Saturn, which is 60 years oldish. It's also symbolized by the graying of the facial hair in a lot of traditions.
That could start really early.
That's
for some
right.
People though.
Mhm.
Which
Yeah.
yeah, which is why I think that it's. Let's see. You joke, but there's a lot, like in medieval records, there's a lot of like record of people being promoted because their facial hair changed and things like that. So their hair
Really?
changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Many forms of energy work exist. Let's talk about Reiki here. This will be more of a private thing or a thing that you would do one-on-one. And this is the idea of energy work to heal. Other examples would include solitary rituals or creation of potions that would heal you from physical or mental afflictions. So this will be like, I'm going to make myself a potion to drink later that'll make myself feel better. My personal example of this is I make war water sometimes, which is like basically just a mixture of iron and water, and then you bathe in it to make yourself stronger is the idea, or more focused. Let's see, on the ritualistic side, we have the sun or the moon tent. This is generally in a lot of traditions, it is a public thing. When somebody reaches adulthood, there's stories of, people having, especially males in antiquity, having to go out and complete special missions once they become a certain age, bring back fire, bring back meat, certain type of thing. And then in antiquity anyway, for biological females, when they happened upon their period, they would go and have kind of a special retreat time, where with other ladies who would kind of teach them what to do and that sort of thing. And then on the other side of that, in a more private sense or a practical sense, we have to bind or to destroy. This would include spellwork or rituals designed to harm another person or to keep another person from harming you or someone else. So very rarely would you do that in a group setting. With some examples, I think there was a vine trump thing that happens back in the day. There's also a famous example of Gerald Gardner's group attempting to keep the Nazis from getting to England.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of these could go either way, but yeah. What else we got down there?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. All right. So that does it for this. So I kind of want to open it up for discussion on if you learned anything, for one, and number two, kind of how, and again, if anything is private with your own personal practice, do not share. But I'm just always interested to hear what people's philosophies are on their own magical workings. Have you given any thought to how it works, or does that kind of dampen the magical process? I know myself, I have to know everything. So like I have to have a hypothesis. I'm very scientific in my magical methodologies. So does anybody want to start and talk about the stuff?
I'm weird. Not necessarily, I don't have to have a formula specifically or a hypothesis. I feel like one way or another, magic is going to be there. Always, it's everywhere.
I see.
It's, I feel like it's something that we can connect to at will if so desired, and I don't feel like it's meant to be understood.
I see.
I think there's always going to be an aura of mystery or another layer, like an onion to unravel. Like you said earlier, a lot of what science has discovered was previously thought of as magic. So there's always going to be another layer of something to uncover or discover or find out.
Oh, and if you are very new to this, by the way, the other question I want you to think about, I'm always interested in people's like how would you call them, remedies and things like that come up in your household, like putting hedge balls in the things you don't know why you do, but you do, if you can think about any of those things. I'm trying to think of stuff for like, even like using medicines for things they're not to be used for, like putting Vicks Vapor Rub everywhere, you know?
I just read an article on the net that people put Vicks in their ears. I never knew that was something that they would do, like
Mhm.
for an earache. I don't know.
I always
They
started
put
rubbing
it on a
the
cotton
bottom
ball.
of
They put it
baby's
on
feet.
a cotton ball and then stick it in their ear overnight.
Mhm.
And supposedly it makes it go away. And I thought,
Probably
never
the
knew that
peppermint.
was something that,
Yep, so
People
menthol
would do.
is a
Yeah.
vasodilator.
Yeah.
So that's why it would in turn you've got all those little teeny tiny blood vessels
Right.
and capillaries in your ear and
I do heard hydrogen peroxide.
in your ear.
Yeah. I tilt my head over and I pour a little bit in and I let it fizz.
Ooh.
And then I dump it out
Yep.
and clean it.
Yep.
And it works every
Interesting.
time.
Yep.
Don't know why, it just does.
I think my thing, because I said nature was my thing,
Mhm.
is I'm always, every summer I've got to experiment with some new plant to see if I can be successful in raising it and, read up about it, figure out, what it needs and all of that sort of thing. And the other major thing that also I think stems back to that is the fact that for many years I raised dogs and I always have pets. Animals are very important to me, those kinds of things, especially since my divorce and being by myself.
Mhm.
They're like my family. Like today, I had to take them away and let them stay somewhere else while I go out of town. That was really hard.
I
My
didn't-
house always feels really weird.
I know. It's like every 5 minutes I'm saying, well, how come Lolo hasn't been in here? And also she's a fairly new dog and I've only had her 2 years and she was, a rescue. And so it's been a learning process between the two of us. And I'm wondering how she's doing. I mean, I have to check up on her. Because I don't want her to think that somebody else is deserting
Dropped her
her.
off at the town. Yeah.
It didn't get on the list, but it doesn't mean that it's any less valid, but familiar magic is also a big thing. In witchcraft, using animals as companions and in your magical work. So, and that extends to plants. I
They
think
definitely keep me healthy.
keep you healthy. Yeah.
Some people will, if their familiar passes away, when they get a new pet, they will perform a familiar ritual to have
Oh,
the soul transfer to the new pet.
that's neat.
Yeah.
Huh.
I've heard of that a couple times happening.
Also, I'm always interested to learn if anybody has like any tip, trick, spell type of things. I just kind of like to collect those things.
Put us on the spot and I can't think of any.
I'll
share.
I have a question for you.
Oh, you
Do you have any spells for grief?
for grief? Have a few, and then one we've actually kind of talked about recently. So my biggest thing is, especially for children, I will, and again, I don't frame this as a spell, right?
Mhm.
Okay, because the goal of this class specifically is to show how magic permeates life, right? So creating a little box for a child that symbolizes the casket or the urn that they're in, but then through imaginative processes and imagination and another form of magic, getting the child to understand and believe that as long as they don't open the box, grandma is in there and they can talk to them, like that sort of thing.
Because they have a hard time understanding when they say
Right.
that,
thing
big
is,
box.
Right.
Curious.
So the conversation I have is, yes, she's in that box, but you can have a version of her in this box that you can talk to. That sort of thing.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Asher. Go ahead, Asher.
And not really a question. You were just interested in like other people's practices, and I am not new. I was kind of brought up in it. My grandpa came from a long line of Freemasons, though he himself decided not to be one. And then my grandma did a lot of like the Roman Catholic folk practices. So I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's like working with like saints and that kind of thing. And then I was a little bit more as a rebel and atheist up until I was 24. And that's when I had a near-death experience and met Aphrodite and changed my life to being an Aphrodite devotee. And so now I've been a love witch for the past 5 years. So I do a lot of like glamour working, love working, friendship, confidence, just stuff like that mostly. But it's really funny because that's not what I was brought up in. It's really funny that like your life can take a different direction because that's not what my grandparents' practices were. So if anybody ever has any questions about stuff like Reiki or meditation, I'm certified in that. And then, you know, I just do a lot of like love witchy things. So if you want to work on your self-confidence or you want to feel a little bit better about how you take up space in the world, especially if you're a female presenting, because that can be kind of difficult in a male dominated world and how like take up space. You know, that's more of my area of expertise.
Interesting.
Cool. Awesome.
Claire, what was your topic?
Like Asher, I kind of collect things as I go, but I think because I was brought up in like a conservative Christian home, I was taught to like always pray, you know, and so now I kind of like call in my ancestors a lot, and I'll do it sometimes with a visualization, sometimes just if I'm feeling like nervous or need some more strength or I'm about to do a ritual or something like that. But I'll call in like anything I've collected along the way, you know. So I have like oceanic guides and spirit guides and all of the elements of the natural world, Mother Earth, whoever else I feel like I want to call in at the time, and just ask for strength or ask for whatever. And that's always helpful for me to like get into that mindset. And sometimes I will meditate that I'm just like unzipping all of the crap off of my whole body, like just like I'm just energy, and I'm just like I'm not anxious, I'm not whatever, and I just kind of like leave that skin and just kind of dispose of it, and then I just feel a lot better.
That must be really nice. That must be a really nice feeling afterwards.
Sometimes I have to zip myself up a little bit though, because sometimes I will go
Let go a little bit too
far.
much.
Yeah, and I'll be like, oh, okay. I'm like floating. I do a lot of grounding meditations where I imagine that my feet turn into roots, and that just helps me. I do that a lot in the morning when I wake up, or even sometimes before I get out of bed, just to help ground me a little bit. I make a lot of sigils as well, and I will just like put them on Post-its all over the house. And I don't know what any of them mean anymore, but I do feel like I can't touch them. I put it there for a reason one time, so there it stays.
Interesting.
I have them under my welcome mat, the front door and the back door both, just like protection and intention when people come in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have a broom over my door.
I do
A
as
cinnamon
well.
broom. It's supposed to like brush off the negativity before you enter.
We know a broom maker. I need to get
Is it on the
I bought mine
inside
at
or the
Hershey's.
outside?
On the inside.
On the inside.
Either or will actually work though, because
Really?
they have to pass under it to go through the threshold, so it really won't matter.
I put pennies on my windows and doors as well. When I'll do a cleanse a couple times a year. And I'll start inside the house and then I'll go outside around the house too.
So what does the penny?
Everyone in my neighborhood's a weirdo,
symbolize?
so they don't think anything
What
of
does
me
the
walking
penny
around with incense.
symbol?
It's just like a part of Earth, I guess. It's protection. That's my intention anyway. It's to protect any of the like holes of my house from anything getting in and any of the good leaving.
awesome. Anybody else have anything? Mother-daughter team? Anything? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would manifestation be like visualization? What is that? I don't know.
So, good question. Manifestation's more of a general term. So things can manifest, but how do I say that? That's general, but you could visualize so well that something would manifest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
but things can manifest outside as well. So if you are working with a candle and you see something in the smoke, that would be a manifestation. If you're doing a visualization and you see something that was unintended or hear something, that would be a manifestation. Manifestation basically just means recognizing something that wasn't there previously. Does that make sense to everyone? Awesome. Let's see, I'm trying to think of ones. We just recently, there was a question about stuff that I kind of do on a funeral home level. This is sort of specialized, and I won't give out names or anything like that just because I never would. But we worked with a person who believed that death was following their family and they had been cursed by someone or something. Wow. So I don't think we actually passed this on to this person because Alyssa was communicating with them more than I was. But in our brainstorming session, my grandma always used to have she'd use it for anything, for like bad luck to, there was somebody specifically wanting to cause you harm. But she called it the burn jar or the berry jar. Oh. But basically you put your hair in there or something that represents you, nails, a broken mirror, and then you bury it at the base of a tree away from you. And then the idea is that you forget it's there, but you can check on it every so often. And then if somebody were to throw something at you, lightning would strike that instead of you. So that's an example of kind of something in my family that my grandma would do. And that would be like, oh, he's got a toothache, I'm gonna go bury a jar. Like it wasn't always like very dire, but yeah. So great grandma, not grandma. Cool.
That probably had something to do with why we invented locks on doors in the first place. Because back in, way back, you just had open doorways or doors that were there.
Yeah.
And then finally we developed locks where we could lock out people from coming in, or spirits or whatever.
Another one that I've seen recently, were we South Dakota? No. Yes?
Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A lot of times you'll see, like, in magical places, you'll see locks on fences or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of an old-timey ritual of locking something there and leaving it there and throwing away the key or bringing the key with you, especially when it comes to, like, lovers and things of that nature.
Moving
on, leaving behind.
The Lovers Bridge is in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So
people put their
Beings in Valley Junction is having a mural painted on the back of their building, and they had a heart sculpture made specifically to put padlocks on. So lovers or friends, or they had a brother sister who were separated, never knew each other. I think they were sperm donor children, and they found each other through a DNA. And they chose Valley Junction as their meeting place, and so they put a lock on the heart sculpture to commemorate their meeting for the very first time.
So
But
where is this?
it's in Valley Junction. The store is called Beans.
It's 200 watt?
I think so.
200
Like
yeah,
beans, like
BING.
Like the cherry.
Okay,
yeah,
Big
cherry.
cherry.
Yeah, they have cherries on their sign.
Yeah.
I don't know if the sculpture is out yet because I don't know if their mural got painted yet because it was weather depending, but this was something that I'm on the design committee in Valley Junction, so I heard about it through them.
There's a fence at the Grand Canyon that people are doing that with, and I read an article and it says that park rangers are asking that people not throw locks and keys into the canyon because
for sure.
animals are eating them.
Condors were
Oh my
Condors are
goodness.
eating the keys and they're dying because they can't pass them naturally. So it's
Because they smell like human.
well, and because they're shiny. Condors are like little kids. They ooh shiny. Let me pick that up and put it in my mouth and eat it.
Just like a ferret.
Yeah, just like a toddler. Let me.
Very, very true.
another funeral related thing. I literally had someone in and call in and cancel a burial because they realized it was going to be on Friday the 13th. So
They already have the whole.
yeah, so yeah,
Wow.
Oh,
all examples of how magic is around you all of the time.
What you think about this October, you have Friday the 13th, you have a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse, and a blood full moon.
All within weeks.
Along with the meteor shower.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yep, tomorrow, Friday 13th.
And then after that, you have the solar eclipse.
Yep, 14th, and then the 28th is the full moon.
And then you have the lunar eclipse around that same time.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of magic going on.
Oh, yeah.
So if you wanna know why your life is going haywire,
It's, tonight is like the first day of the haywireness.
that's what it was.
Yep. I think it's Venus entered something I read earlier today. I can't remember.
She's move along.
So,
Move on.
I did kind of a strange ritual, kind of one I made up myself, I guess. It's, so a year ago, last May, they found some cancerous cells in my uterus, and so they took everything out, and I kept a part of an ovary just because I wasn't ready to go to menopause yet. And I brought my uterus home and my fallopian tubes and my cervix and my ovary, and I dug a hole, and I had my granddaughter put it in there. While I did a ritual first and kind of just asking for uterine health for my girls and, things like that, and fertility and things like that. So yeah, my uterus is in my front yard.
They let you bring it home?
I know.
They're not
that's
gonna tell me
wild.
not. I said it's part of my religious.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, that's how my kids never had to take gym class either.
Oh.
Yeah, we're gonna doesn't allow us to run. Somebody's chasing you.
love it.
Unless it's absolutely necessary, it is not allowed.
That's right. Running for our lives.
Where was my excuse when I needed it?
Do you want to do a break?
Yeah. And then I think we're gonna talk about altars next.
Okay.
And that'll finish off our evening. But thank you for the discussion. That's my favorite part. So yeah.
It was.
All right, everyone, we are back. We're gonna take a look now at altar stuff, and also a little bit of etiquette and stuff like that. I want to reiterate that every magical practice is a little bit different. This is kind of Wiccan centric. Again, actually the altar is pretty much a strict Wiccan altar, but it can be easily modified and verified to suit your own purposes. Also, what I said about visualization is key as well. You do not have to have a physical altar, okay? Some folks don't have the space, some folks don't have the time, some folks just don't want to, all right? So it's not a requirement. But a lot of pagans will keep some sort of altar to their idea of source in their home, and then also use it to create sacred space around in order to do their spell casting and magical work. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about here. That term sacred space just refers to so like a church. We talked about how a church was on hollow ground and blessed, right? And we talked about how we don't have many brick and mortar churches. So we kind of do the blessing and the hollowing of the ground ourselves, all right? We do that by casting a circle in most regards. It can be, and first kind of the steps in that is to ground yourself. Grounding is generally an idea of calming down, collecting yourself, doing your initial thought and walk through with what you're going to do. Meditations come into play, chants come into play sometimes. Janae was talking about cleansing a little bit. So in our rituals, we'll generally spritz people with holy water being blessed by our folks instead of other folks. But this is the idea of coming into the ritual clean. It's also it's more of a mental thing and a spiritual thing, but a lot of people prefer to like shower or do some sort of hand washing, something of that before they go into sacred space or create the sacred space. All right. But grounding, your root meditation is a good grounding method. Basically anything to get you here and present and focused and relaxed. Does that make sense to everyone?
It can also be as physical as taking your shoes off and putting your feet on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes we use smoke cleansing,
Mhm.
or we use sage misting, which is something we just discovered kind of.
Ooh. And then the next step would be to actually cast a circle. So circle casting and quarter calling are sometimes synonymous, but a lot of times we will work with the 4 directions, okay? And we will speak to them and acknowledge them, and as we're doing that, that's what closes the circle, right? Again, your quarters are going to be personal to you, okay? Generally speaking, north, like I always get this wrong, south would represent fire, east would represent air, north would represent earth, yes, and then water would be west, okay? So people often have things associated with each of those. So for like me, I use Leviathan to the west, I use Belial to the north, I use Satan to the south, and then I use Lucifer to the east, okay? This could be replaced by ancestors that you assign to watch over each quarter. This could be angels, and we mentioned kind of the saint and angelic process, kind of cloaking paganism inside of Catholicism. So a saint might guard each corner for you. It doesn't have to be anything at all. You could just simply acknowledge that and just speak in that direction. We've done a lot of different ways, I know, for here at the church.
Mermaids, dragons,
Yeah,
fairies.
yeah. Our dragon person's not here, but they're, you know, so yeah. So, and this is the idea of basically when you're talking to each element and you're communicating with each element in each direction, that forms a sense that you're the center of the universe. You're the center of that compass rose, okay? And psychologically, that helps you create that sacred space. Also, casting a lot of people will walk the circle, you know, and then they'll walk the circle as it traditionally clockwise to create the circle, and then counterclockwise to take the circle down. A lot of folks will imagine a cone of power, which is basically visualizing the circle around you and then raising a cone of light or energy or whatever you would like up into the air to protect the sacred space. So anytime you hear casting a circle, that's what that refers to. And then once that circle is cast, that is considered to be a sacred space. So you would treat that as a place where literally gods and goddesses walk, and yes, so that would be your church at that moment, okay? And then circle ethics, just going into that, you want to act a certain way inside of a circle. Although it's not always required to be serious, it's important to be respectful. When in a group or circle rituals, do your best to match the energy of the group, right? So if everybody's kind of lighthearted and fun, try to be that way. Don't be all somber. And then if the reverse is true as well.
So you said match what?
Match energy. So just try to be like everyone else. Try to keep the energy of the circle alive. If that makes sense.
So certain times of the year, rituals are more fun and lively, whereas like our next ritual, Samhain, is more sullen, like somber and serious and not as fun, you know, like it's fun, but it's not
celebratory.
Yeah, it's not like yoo-hoo, celebrate, you know, it's like a remembrance because it's Samhain. It's, you know, the next, you know, Day of the Dead is in the same time period. We were honoring our ancestors and stuff, and that's more of a serious thing.
So it could be serious energy, fun energy, whatever.
And like the next one will be Yule, which will be a lot more fun.
A lot more festive.
Yeah, a lot more festive.
It makes up for it.
Yep.
Do you do Yule outside?
No, I have not personally done Yule outside. Susan said that she wanted to do Yule this year. So I haven't heard from her on what she wants to do yet, but
It's a little cold in this.
just a little bit. We have done Samhain outside here in the labyrinth, But
Yeah, they have a really nice labyrinth over here in our garden.
That's what I've heard. Is that one not outside this year?
no, it's gonna be inside.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great thing to talk about, just on matching energy. And then little things, everyone's a little bit different, but generally once the circle is cast, you don't just leave the circle until it ends. So if you need to leave the circle, there's some sort of ritualistic practice that you'll do. It's designated
Cut
at a
yourself a
time.
door.
Yeah, cut yourself a door, acknowledge you're leaving, that type of thing, and then return the same way. Yeah, just little things like that. But again, every single one's going to be a little bit different. So, and then here next, I have just kind of general elemental associations. This goes along with calling the quarters. So for the north, you have the element of earth. The trait of that will be the physical body. Land animals are generally associated with the earth, so your foxes, your deer, that sort of stuff. Kind of like creatures from lore, behemoth, which is kind of a giant elephant creature from the Hebrew lore, is associated with that. The angel, if you were using any angels in the practice, would be Uriel. Demon would be Belial. The color is green or brown, something earthy. And then items that you would have on your altar or around was things like dirt, rock, salt, things representing earth. The east is the element of air. The trait would be intelligence. Animals, you would kind of focus on flying animals there because they utilize the air. Creature associated with it is often the Sphinx. Angel will be Raphael. Demon will be Lucifer. Colors are yellow or clear, but you can't see clear, so you use yellow, I guess. And then items, smoke, incense, things that represent the air. South, you have fire. Trait would be passion. Animals would be burrowing animals, things getting burrow to get warm, that sort of thing. The creature associated with this would be the salamander. Angel will be Michael. Demon will be Satan. Color will be red. Items will be like candle, lamp, or anything representing fire, any fire representation. And then west is water. Trait is emotion. You focus on animals like marine animals and fish. Creature, mermaid. Angel, Gabriel. Demon, Leviathan. Color blue. Items will be like a bowl of water. And I have a little section here just on general source.
Can you go back
Oh, yep.
just a minute? Okay, what was like the first thing that you said for fire and water, like intelligence was air? What?
So that goes to
Trait.
yeah, the trait.
Yeah.
You want to know what they were or what they
Yes.
mean? Okay. So let's see.
North is physical body.
Yep.
Right, okay, I got that. Okay, I'm saying what was it for fire and water? That's
Fire
what
and
I'm
water.
missing.
Fire is passion,
Okay,
and then water is emotion.
okay.
Then I just wanted to take a minute here to talk about God and goddess associations. A lot of times on a traditional Wiccan altar, you're going to have a representation of a god and a goddess. Again, that's a very binary thing, and a lot of folks don't work with binary, so that's not required. But I just do want to talk about it in its classical sense. Some folks will use just the goddess figure. Dianic Wicca is a big example of that. Other traditions represent the god only. This will be, there was an order called the Order of the Horn God for a long time. And Dianic Wicca was really opposed to men. And then the Order of the Horn God was kind of the same way. And that could change from ritual to ritual. So there are certain rituals that might be dedicated just to the god and vice versa.
So is there a name for the horn god?
There's a bunch of names for the horn god,
Okay.
but
Could be
it's
one.
more of a personification.
Okay.
And then you can kind of stick your god of choice in there.
Okay,
Wicca, their idea is that one umbrella houses everything. So they just celebrate the god and the goddess.
okay.
Yeah. But I'm sure that everyone in this room has a different god or goddess that they're going to have on that altar. If
Gotcha.
that makes sense. Or none at all. I mentioned everything there. Colors of the god and goddess representations vary generally, but they always contrast like gold and silver, black and white. Generally, they use yonic and phallic symbolism. Yonic would represent the chalice, basically we're talking vagina, and then phallic symbols will be the penis. So like bladed weapons would represent male, wands would represent male, chalices represent female, and then generally, yeah, that's the biggest one that you'd use as a chalice. Also cauldron, if you're using a cauldron.
Bealtana is a good example of fertility.
Yeah, fertility.
So the crux of that ritual is generally those things joining in some way.
Oh. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I read ahead and the first sentence kind of.
Other representations of things you might find on an altar. So LaVeyan Satanists use a nude person on the altar, generally. Some people choose a generic symbol for the universe as their central symbol. This would be things like the yin yang, anything to represent just the cosmos. Some use reflective surfaces, such as a witch's mirror or a scrying ball, as a central focal point. We talked about if you're doing a ritual to communicate with ancestors or just source in general, that might be your central focus point of your altar. Crystal points, generally quartz. Pyramids are used to direct energy upward into a cone of power. So that could be a physical representation of that energy being beamed up and around you. And then just a little section on basic altar tools. We have the athame. This is a ritual blade used in circle casting. It's also used to cut the veil we talked about for when you enter and leave once ritual is started. It's not used for any other purpose. Your athame is not really supposed to cut anything physical ever. So, yeah.
Is that the main difference between that and
The bowline? Yep. So the bowline is used to cut herbs and for any other utilitarian means in ritual. So obviously, if you're using things that need to be cut, you're going to have some sort of implement to do that, and that would be what the
usually
bowline
sharper
represents.
too.
Yep. Next, we'll have the chalice. Represents water, and it'll hold ale for ritual, or elixir, some people call it. That's my tie-in to our drink of choice tonight. A lot of folks refer to these as spirits. Well, I guess wine's not technically a spirit, but that goes back to the idea that ancient folk believed that the spirits were in wine, or in alcohol, and that's why it changed you. So a lot of people would use that inside of their ritualistic practices in order to channel things. That's seen in a lot of different cultures and variations. Even, Catholics drink a lot of wine, right, for their ideas. So, doop-a-doo. Wand is generally in the circle and is a representation of fire, and it's used to direct energy during the ritual. You might have a cauldron, which is used to mix together any herbs or potions during the ritual. You might have a broom or a besom, which is symbolically used to clear energy inside of the sacred space. A lot of folks will keep these above their door, like Janae was talking about, just kind of the protection and cleansing of the home type of thing. Book of Shadows will generally be in there somewhere. This is going to be your magical text. A lot of practitioners have a grimoire or a book of shadows that collects their thoughts. It's kind of part journal, part manual. It's generally very personalized and has a lot of varying things in it. Spells, potions.
Sometimes you don't even share it. Sometimes it's so sacred you don't even share it.
It's common if you have like a group or a coven, they'll generally have a group book of shadows, and then practitioners will have their individual ones. And the group one would be used in the group rituals, and then your private one would be used for practical magic or that sort of stuff. Cakes and ale, ritual libations are used to signify communion with source and with the group. So again, this is kind of a thing that Christianity sort of took. The Eucharist was not, it was very common for ancient people to use bread and wine or beer or whatever to symbolize the fruits of bounty and things like that. So when Christ came up and said, okay, no, this is your fruit now, and this is your wine, this is now my blood, this is now my body, he was kind of actually perverting something that already was around for a long time. That's the idea that those were sacrifices to pagan gods, the bread and the wine or whatever you were using. And then he was saying, no, now I am that thing. Now I am the sacrifice for you, which is something I just like to point out because a lot of folks will argue that point. But a pentacle is often on the ritual space somewhere. A lot of times it'll be the tapestry used underneath all of your implements. And this is used in the center of the altar to designate the quarters and is a central focal point.
How does it designate the quarters if there's 5 points on each?
Well, that is a good point, but
Sorry.
One is for spirit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one is for source.
Okay.
You've got your directions and then you have your all
Oh, okay.
source.
but your point, it is confusing, so you
You're
gotta
right.
put a thing on top of it, yeah.
Yeah.
A bell is used to sonically clear unwanted energy from your space. Your bells and gongs and things like that have always been a thing used to get rid of spirits.
You can also use it for cleansing.
Sound cleansing. Sound baths are big nowadays.
That's funny. We my mom's a big fan of bells. We actually have strings of bells hanging off of all our doors.
Yep.
Nice.
Those are witches' bells.
Yep. Or for a while down at my other place, we did a whole thing we did a book club a while back on this book on druidry, and they would they had hedge spaces that they would use, and they would have like bells that they would tie to hedges and things like that. So I had a bunch of branches on the ceiling with bells hanging down. Anyway. And then I have kind of a basic altar diagram here showing you how that stuff would be laid out. And again, this is going to vary wildly, but you have your colors there. So you have green up top representing earth. To the left, you have the west for water. At the bottom, you have red for south and fire. And then on the right, you have air, which is yellow or gold. And then you have all of their things in their corresponding locations. Only thing on that I didn't talk about was crystals. I think that's kind of an optional thing. But a lot of folks will use crystals to be charged, to be serving purposes, or that sort of thing. Well, I'm not a gem person. I'm not a crystal person, but I know a lot of people are. Yeah.
So is the little block, the little brown slit at the top connected or separate? Like, is that something you'd put above, or is that something you'd put like
I think what it's
on a
meaning to
little
represent.
shell?
This one here.
Yeah.
So that would be, the top row would be on the wall.
Oh.
So it's like this.
Yeah.
So it's on the wall, and then
Yeah, and then
the altar is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. I'm like, why is it broken up?
Yeah.
Who ripped it?
And most folks will have their altar in the center of their space, and then they'll call their quarters around it. So, yeah. And that is a breakdown of altar
Sort of
stuff.
shows it there with the little brown lines on the other part.
This right here.
Yeah.
That's like the bird's eye view.
I think that's just the
down. Yeah.
the ass
Yeah.
end or the bottom
Right.
half of
Right.
those two, those
Yeah,
three
right,
things
yeah.
that are, yeah.
Yeah. So
You don't have to hang things on the wall.
you don't.
You do not.
No.
Some people do.
Yeah.
I have things to hang on the wall, just haven't.
I see.
I'm seeing a lot more altars that are like an old milk crate, and the altar's just like inside of it.
Mhm.
Like a
Or
diorama.
people will, and then they can just move it around, or they can put things like hang it from the milk crate, or put things in anyway. And then I see some that are like in a bookshelf that, or a cupboard that opens up.
Mhm.
Yeah, people are doing interesting stuff.
Depending on the witchy shop, you can buy miniature altars to go.
What?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Mhm.
They have like just a tiny little like,
Pocket
tea-
altars.
Yeah,
Pocket
tea light,
altars,
a
yeah.
couple little herbs.
So do they
maybe
have
some
miniatures
sage,
and
yeah.
then small, medium, and large?
And you can make your own, like Altoid tins, perfect for that.
Yeah.
Little
That's
diorama.
awesome.
Yeah.
I knew a person who used they had their altar in the center of the room,
Mhm.
and then for their quarters, they had like little platforms, and on each quarter was a dollhouse. And then they put little dolls in there that represented all of their little guardians and things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did that person have them out all the time?
Yes,
just
they
that
had
person?
they had their entire house is pretty much dedicated, but like
Wow.
then their ritual space, they left it up all of the time, and they had all that.
They would just open the circle, close the circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Here,
Yeah.
what we got here?
Asher shared a picture.
Ooh, we got an altered picture. Nice.
A bit of load.
It's a little dark.
Well,
It's
there we
Wait
go.
till she lights her candles. Jeez.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry, I'm just too impatient.
There we go.
Oh,
Oh,
The Aphrodite.
I
Mhm.
like that statue.
cool.
And she
How big is
says-
that statue?
That's in her living room.
3 feet at least.
Yeah.
That's huge, yeah.
She's got a pillar candle right there on the right in
Yeah.
front of the little Aphrodite, and those are about 12 inches, so
Uh-huh.
3 times that.
Is that an offering plate? It looks
It
like?
is.
About 4 feet.
That would be a really awkward statue to me.
Oh, it's about 4 feet tall, she said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's common for folks, if you follow like more than one deity, you can have many different altars throughout your house. I wouldn't consider those to be like working altars. Those would be like offering
Just-
altars
yeah.
or, but yeah.
If you've ever been to Gwen and Issa's home, their entire house is an altar. They have things in different corners dedicated to different things.
Cool.
Yeah.
You need to duck out. I have a 9-year-old to pick up in
All right,
2 minutes,
guys.
it's bedtime.
It is bedtime. And guys, we are technically done for the day. Any questions or considerations or more altered pictures, certainly bring them forward. But if anybody needs to split.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You talked about like casting the circle and a few of the kind of the rules around it, but can you talk about like how to close up the space, how to clean up the space, and like what happens when you forget to do that?
So, okay, I'm going to go with the traditional answer and I'm going to go with my opinion. So,
Yes.
so the traditional answer, generally everything you did to open it, you would do it in reverse.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so if you walked clockwise around your circle to call, then you would walk counterclockwise to close. Also, if you welcomed everything in your quarters, you would dismiss everything in your quarters in the opposite direction. Technically speaking, the ritual what would happen, it would be that the ritual would never end. It would never be closed. Thus, your will could not go
It
out.
wouldn't happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Here's an example of the travel altars on
Ooh,
Etsy.
nice.
Yeah, they got some cute ones.
They fit in
They're
Altoid
actually,
stands.
I was gonna say, they
They're-
probably
yeah,
make
they're-
them
they're
in the
little-
tins.
Yeah.
They're little Altoid stints.
Yep.
My personal thing is that I never close, actually.
You never close?
No. And the idea is that this is
Never
all,
seen those.
this goes kind of into my personal practice too, but I'm a fan of what I call working dirty. So like, I don't cleanse at all. I do stuff that drives her nuts. I know, all the time. Like tarot cards, like I don't dedicate them. I want everything that was on there to be on there when I work with it. And then also I want to be involved with everything in all aspects of my life. So I never close. I just never do. But that's a severely personal thing. You're never going to find that anywhere else, probably.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
That's
And like for
interesting.
what we do in CUUPS, it's always closed, as
Yeah.
we said, in the traditional manner. So, yeah. Same thing with like, I don't use a circle either, because there's this idea that the circle is for protection also, which I didn't go into here. It's a little bit more of a deeper concept. But there's the idea of, so if you go into ritualistic magic with like the Order of the Golden Dawn and stuff like that, they believed that they would be summoning entities, but they were afraid of them, so they would want to keep them on the outside of the circle. And then the Crowley circle, as I call it, would be the circle, and then you would have a triangle. And then your sage or whatever you were using, your medium for conjuring, would be in the triangle. And the idea is to keep those things separate. And the way I work, I like actually invoke. So like I want the things in me that I'm working with, and I want the things, I don't want that. I feel it's disrespectful to the things I'm working with to put barriers in between them and me. If I'm scared, I shouldn't be doing it. Like that sort of thing.
We don't do that in Hellenic polytheism either. We don't do circles or anything like that. That's very Wiccan.
Yeah, it's very Wiccan. And like I said, this was a very kind of bare bones Wiccan course. And then, yeah, so I just, that's how it is.
I only do a circle if I'm working with any kind of smoke. That's the only time I do. Like if I like, a lot of times like for trances and for like mind passages and for like visualizing things, I use smoke and flame a lot. I know you like a still thing, and I prefer something that moves for myself. So it helps like a little bit different, but I only do a circle if there's fire. So.
Ooh, somebody else shared a photo and it's pretty.
Ooh, what do we got here? Melissa, looks like.
It's pretty.
Our chat lady.
Like the difference in like energies and practices and aesthetics, and I kind of love it. Because like if you look at mine, it's very pink princess, and then this is very like, deep and earthy, and I kind of really love it. It's very smoky and ethereal.
She waited until it was dark and she had the candles lit.
Yeah.
To make sure.
Very cool.
That looks great.
It's very nifty.
Got a bell there. What else we got? Oh, there's the triple moon symbol.
I have that.
Got some herbs. Yeah, goddess and god. Yeah.
I've never been to Ireland. I have ancestors there too. Oh, that's so
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Very important to have ancestors.
Love that.
Oh, ancestral dirt from Ireland.
Yeah, talking about it, so cool.
That is neat.
I actually have a picture of mine on my phone. It's very simple.
Thanks for everybody sharing.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you
that.
for sharing.
I don't know if you guys want to see mine.
Oh, cute. Let me see if I can hold up to the camera.
Kind of, maybe.
There we go.
Kind of, yeah.
Very simple. Yes, it is on a radiator heater box. A radiant heat box. It worked perfect for a stand.
Who cares?
Mine's across the room. We have
Yep.
his and hers altars.
Yes, we do. That's cool.
Love it.
Oh, that's pretty.
He likes his energy near his bed, and I like mine far away.
Mm.
I don't like to interfere with my sleep.
So what is this, is it like a branch or?
It is, no, actually, that is a piece of like dried branch that my grandson and I found on a walk one time.
Oh, cool.
And he picked it up
That's
and
pretty.
he said, Gigi, stick. Actually, he said, Gigi, dick for you. Thank you, sweet boy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he calls me Gigi.
Are there any other questions in the
I
Zoom
do a
or?
lot of like stuff from my garden on my altar.
My bowl is full of things that were given to me and passed down through my family, the ancestors, things that were actual items that belong to people in my family, so.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's
I bought her the crystal
interesting.
ball.
He did. He did.
It's interesting to me when, this is my first introduction for sure. But the things you talk about still are things, some things are evident in my life
Sure, that you didn't realize.
that I didn't realize would have that connotation.
The
or-
plate in the middle has to do with, so you can see it's somebody carrying a body. It's an Egyptian plate that a friend of mine brought back from Egypt. Parading the body through. And, yeah.
You also have to think, if you were raised Catholic, a lot of Catholic things were stolen from pagans.
Sure, yeah.
Because they wanted the pagans to
Or they tried
convert.
to change.
I realize
Yeah,
that because
exactly.
I lived in Mexico City, Mexico,
Mhm.
the whole time that I was in junior high and high school. And a lot of the things you talk about, you know,
Yep.
Day of the Dead and all of those kinds of
Yep.
things down there, you could see a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That
and the
sort
Day
of-
of the Dead is really a cultural
in their Catholic practices.
Mhm.
as well. So like, I don't think that's specifically Catholic because I have never done a Day of the Dead. I think that's a specific cultural.
Right.
It is, it's a very
Yeah.
Hispanic
Uh-huh.
thing.
Mhm. Yep.
But again, I think in Peru or somewhere they do the same thing where they dig up their dead and they party with them and dress them and put them on display, and which is super, super cool.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
They better embalm well.
I've seen pictures.
They don't. No, I know. I've seen pictures as well. I know. It's weird. I mean, precious and sacred to them, but weird to us.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's strange. But then again, I had to go visit my grandma in hospice the other day, and I can't stand the woman, and I took my mother's lock of hair. My mother's gone, and I took her lock of hair with me for strength. So, just what you do. I didn't want to choke her before her last breath, okay? I needed mother's strength for that.
Yeah, I have an aunt, it's the only one of my ancestors on my mother's side that is still alive, so it'd be my mom's youngest sister.
Mhm.
And her husband are in their 90s,
Mhm.
and they've been living at Kennybrook and Grimes.
Mhm.
And 3 weeks ago, she fell in the shower and hit her head against the, you know, the seat in
Yep.
those showers, and really got a bad bump on her head, really bad. And for days and days and days, they kept saying, well, why is she just sleeping all the time? I said, she's healing. That's her brain healing itself. And, you
And
know,
concussed.
they even went to the point of moving her to hospice. It didn't mean she moved anywhere. She
just
they have a hospital unit at Kennybrook, and she transferred there from the hospital. And they went ahead and transferred her to hospice care so that they wouldn't have to, she was sleeping, how are they gonna get her up and do PT and all that stuff?
Sure.
And I suppose, you know, at some point they can move her the other way, but they don't know yet. But it's really funny, as soon as they moved her to hospice care, she woke up the next day, wanted to talk to everybody and everything. Like, she was a lot better.
Yeah. It's good
And
though.
so I've been going, you know, and talking to her and stuff like that. And people said, oh, don't be surprised, she doesn't even recognize her own grandkids. As soon as I walked in the door, she knew who I was, because I look a lot like my mom.
Yeah.
But,
Same with my girl. She thought I was my mom and then thought my son was my brother.
Interesting how that mind works.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any questions from the Zoom participants or any other people?
Again, guys, we're skipping next week, which is the 19th. We'll be back the following Thursday. I know I said a little bit ago that it's 4 classes, and that's technically true for this content, but we will do the week afterwards. I've got an activity for us that we'll be doing, and yeah, that could be fun.
26? Is it the 26th?
I'm gonna end recording. Thank you.
Yes, 26.